Remember, it's important to always review the charts you intend to use for a given instrument flight. Planning and preparation before taking off will make you a safer and more competent instrument pilot. This program concentrates on the briefing strip format. The briefing strip approach chart format is divided into 4 sections: heading, plan view, profile view, and landing minimums. The information is arranged in a specific pattern based on how pilots review and use the chart data. Now let's discuss the profile view of Jeppesen approach charts. The profile section of the chart is a side view of the procedure, but unlike the plan view, is not drawn to scale. This view depicts the altitudes, fixes, distances, and magnetic courses to be flown. The dominant feature of the profile section is the heavy solid line representing the flight path. Before glide slope interception, this line represents the flight path for both the precision ILS and non-precision localizer approach. Beyond the glide slope interception point, the solid line represents the ILS approach. The localizer approach path is depicted by a dashed line. On a non-precision approach, such as this VOR approach at Dallas-Fort Worth, the flight path is represented by a heavy solid line from the beginning of the approach to the missed approach point. Several altitude types also may be portrayed in conjunction with the flight path line. Unless otherwise noted, profile views depict minimum altitudes. However, an altitude may be listed as mandatory, which means you must cross the specified fix at the given altitude. Altitudes may also be depicted as maximum altitudes. If the approach requires a course reversal, it is depicted in the profile view along with the altitudes and outbound and inbound course. Additional information about the course reversal is noted in the plan view. The number enclosed in parentheses below or beside the MSL figure indicates the height of the flight path above the runway touchdown zone, not the height above the ground. In this example, you are 1,646 feet above the runway touchdown zone. There may be a notation shown in the profile view such as 10 nautical miles. Notes such as these indicate that a procedure turn is required for the approach, and they give procedure turn limits in distance or time. In this case, you must complete the procedure turn within 10 nautical miles of the fix from which the outbound track began. On this approach, the 2 facing arrows indicate you must use a holding pattern as your course reversal. You can find the direction of turns on the plan view. 1-minute legs are specified for this holding pattern, and both legs are flown at 2,400 feet. The final approach fix, or FAF, marks the beginning of the final approach segment on an ILS approach. The FAF is located at the glide slope intercept point when at the minimum altitude. For this approach, the final approach fix is just prior to reaching Good, where the solid line begins a descent. The notation GS 2,235 represents your altitude as you pass Good when on the glide slope. For the localizer, glide slope out, or non-precision approach, the FAF is identified by the cross symbol. For example, you cannot begin your descent from 2,300 feet until you reach the non-precision final approach fix at Good. For a localizer-only approach, the dashed flight path indicates a descent from Good to the missed approach point, or MAP, as identified by the letter M. Notice that this non-precision localizer-only approach includes various step-down fixes, such as a DME distance fix like D3.4, which are used to help you descend to a lower altitude and avoid obstacles along the approach path. The flight track continues to the point at which it turns sharply upward, ending with an arrowhead. This shows the beginning of the missed approach procedure. The missed approach point for a precision approach is based on reaching the decision altitude, DA. It is typically shown close to the middle marker where the solid line indicates climbing flight. When you reach the DA, you must make an immediate decision to continue or to execute a missed approach. The threshold crossing height, or TCH, is listed to show the height above the runway threshold where your aircraft's glide slope antenna will be if you maintain the ILS glide path to touchdown. A threshold crossing height is not shown on non-precision approaches. The touchdown zone elevation, or TDZE, is shown next to the runway symbol. This is the highest elevation in the first 3,000 feet of the landing surface. It may be different than the airport elevation, which is the highest point of an airport's usable runways. Two sets of numbers indicating distances expressed in nautical miles may be located near the bottom of the profile view. The numbers below the line relate to the distance from the landing threshold. Those numbers above the line represent nautical mileage between fixes. In this case, the distance between Ipamee and Uhizo is 5 nautical miles. Now let's take a look at a few variations that may appear in the profile view of an approach chart. It is important to look at some of these differences. However, keep in mind that additional information can be found in the chart legend pages. The circled number refers you to a note located elsewhere in the profile view. This note indicates that when authorized by air traffic control, you can fly at a lower altitude of 2,300 feet when crossing Maury and Papa. This is in lieu of the 3,000-foot altitude listed on the chart. Some non-precision approaches incorporate a visual descent point, or VDP. It is represented by the symbol V on the profile view. It is the location where you may begin a normal descent from the MDA if you have the runway threshold, approach lights, or other identifiable markings of the runway environment in sight. If VASI lights are installed at the airport, your aircraft should be on the VASI glide path at the visual descent point. This VDP is identified by the D4.7 DME fix. This point is an advisory fix, as noted by the thin vertical line. Now let's turn our attention to the conversion table located below the profile view. For a precision approach, the conversion table relates the aircraft's ground speed to the rate of descent necessary to maintain the glide slope. For example, the table shows that at ground speed of 120 knots, your descent rate needs to be approximately 647 feet per minute to stay on the glide slope. In this case, the glide slope is based on a 3-degree descent angle. Depending on the type of approach you're flying, different information may be included in the conversion chart. For non-precision approaches, the bottom line of the conversion chart usually includes the elapsed time from the final approach fix to the missed approach point. It applies only to non-precision approaches because the MAP location for the non-precision approach is usually at the runway threshold and the approach can be timed. Whereas the MAP for an approach using glide slope information occurs approximately 1/2 mile from the threshold when you reach the decision altitude while on the glide slope. When the conversion table is blank, the missed approach point is not based on elapsed time or ground speed, but rather is a specific point. The MAP in this example occurs at the NDB, which is located on the airport. To the right of the conversion table is the lighting box. The lighting box displays a symbol that represents the type of lighting installed for a straight-in landing runway. The symbols for each type of lighting are listed in the chart legend. When ALS is listed, the configuration of lighting is unknown. Also note, when PAPI or VASI are depicted in the lighting box, it is shown either on the left or right side of the runway. This corresponds with the side of the runway on which the lighting system is actually installed. When the lighting box is blank or omitted, the runway has no approach lighting. The missed approach information is found next to the lighting box. Here, icons offer a quick graphic depiction of the textual missed approach procedure. In this case, 4 icons are used. First, climb to 1,000 feet. Then make a climbing right turn to 5,000 feet outbound via the Maverick VOR on the 275-degree radial until you get to slot intersection. This should match the textual description of the procedure. The approach chart legend in the front of the airway manual explains other icons that may be used to depict the missed approach procedure. Because each missed approach is unique, read the procedure carefully and compare it to the missed approach track portrayed in the plan view to make sure you fully understand the procedure. When a missed approach procedure calls for a turn, it's important to understand that the obstruction clearance criteria are figured from the missed approach point. Do not begin a turn until you have reached the missed approach point. As a pilot, it is prudent to thoroughly read and understand the profile view of the chart. If there is something noted on the chart that you haven't seen before, refer to the chart legend and the Jeppesen Chart User's Guide for further information. Finally, if any changes were made to the chart during the last revision cycle, they will be noted along the bottom edge of the chart. In this example, the MSA altitude was changed.